Hi everyone. This is the overview for your Art 1500 two-dimensional design course. The place where you can find everything either is to go to this left side where you can see the little blue modules, announcements, syllabus, or over here on the right, if you're on your phone, you can just click on modules and you should be able to find everything. First off, you have your enrollment agreement. This is basically saying, yes, I am going to enroll in this course. And if you don't fill that out, what happens is within a week, then you end up getting dropped by the course by the registrar. To find out information about me, you can click here and you'll see that my contact information, a little bit of history about me is all right here. So if you need to reach me, the best way is by email. If it's really urgent or you can also contact me and leave me a message on my office phone. In addition, there is an art kit for this course. This video will go into where it says overview video here. But if we click on here, you'll notice that there's an art kit. So this is an actual art course, even though it's fully online, and you can buy all of your materials here. Now you may have some of these materials. A lot of times I have the least expensive one here for you. So in this case, like this is the one, probably the least expensive. This is what you want to look for. So you'll notice that I try to keep the cost down as much as possible. You can use this ruler. If you have a different ruler that you want to use, that's fine. Again, you can decide. It gives you a kind of an overview of what you need. You do need some watercolor paper, heavyweight. You don't necessarily need 30 sheets, but it's hard to find them smaller than that. You do need a color pencil kit. This is your color pencil kit. It's the least expensive one I could find. If you already have one, don't buy another one. You may or may not use watercolor. If you do, that's here. You do need these markers. So these two heavy-duty markers. This is a little drawing kit. Basically, you're going to use the pencil, the erasers, the sharpener, but you won't necessarily use these charcoal pieces. But it's still cheaper to buy it this way than to go, a different route. You may already have this if you're taking drawing for observation. So then again, you would need to add it. These you definitely need. This is your Sakura Pigment Micron pens. You definitely need this kit. You're going to be using this. And then last but not least, a sketchbook. Now, if you have the larger sketchbook for drawing, again, you don't need to buy a second sketchbook. I would flip it over and use the back side of the sketchbook for 2D design and the front of the sketchbook for your drawing. So I hope that, helps you. You can look at all the buying options here. And so there it tells you, what you can get. So there, you're just going to get one of them. But like there's other ones available. So this is too small. You want to check the size. So you want to make sure it's 9 by 12. Okay, let's get out of here and go back to our course. Go back to modules. All right. The first unit is the Zentangle unit. So this is just to get you warmed up. Here is our Zentangle Dropbox. There's videos, and then there's also an essay on what is the difference between art and design. Everything's explained. So if you click on here, you'll notice that there's articles here, a little key differences, just to give you sort of a quick overview of the differences. And there I have, an article here, and then there's key differences here. So these are all different articles that you can look up and will be very helpful for you to write your essay. And then here is your essay where you would put it in. It gives you how many pages. This is a little bit excessive, 6 to 8, but don't forget they're double spaced. If you want to do, if it's a little shorter than that, I'm not going to have a problem with that. Okay. And then, last but not least, let's move on into the next X section. So one of the things you'll notice when we look at the Zentangle up here is there's a video about Zentangle, little description, but there's also this little video. This is the fundamentals of design. You're going to see this more than once. I really want you to watch this. It's very important to understand the differences of design. So if we go into our next section, Elements and Principles of Design Overview, there I have a description. I talk about what's going to all be due, and I have that video in there again. So if you've already watched it, you don't have to watch it twice, but it's very good. And then I go through a little bit longer lecture here on the differences between our art and design and all the elements and principles of design. Now, and then I also talk about thumbnails. So let's go into our first project. So your first project is here. And this is where you're going to read through project 1 and 2. And you should already have watched the fundamentals of design. You should watch the video, Elements and Principles of Design. And then you should read the articles, Elements, Principles of Design Explained and Illustrated. So you should have done all of those things in order to kind of get to the point where you can do this project. So the idea of this project is that you are going to make a visual representation of the elements and principles of design. So I think the best way to understand this project is to go back and look at some of the things that students have already done. So here we have some examples of what students have already done. And if you watch this area first, I think it's going to really help you. So here I have a whole video, and it shows you all the different things that students have done. So definitely watch this because it explains it in great detail. This is where you're going to be using your pencils, your micron pens, and your color pencils. Excuse me. And then here's more examples, right? So all of those will be in this section. And then down here is where you would put in your drop boxes. And then here's your quiz on the elements, principles of design, and the study guides for that quiz. And then there's also discussion boards and more information about thumbnails, about student examples, and introductions to thumbnails. So all of that information is here. I'm not going to go through it all here because it's already in the videos in the area. So here's some fun videos about how to draw shapes, drawing better lines, how to use line variations, and so on. Then that takes us to the next section, which is the Unit 3, drawing with dynamic line. And so here again, we have the project explanation, and it goes into great detail. And then just to help you, again, with this type of project, we have, how to do perspective. So here is a video on, hopefully we can get in here, on how to draw, perspective, like how to create dynamic line. And again, this is one of those areas where I really highly suggest you look at examples so that you get a good idea of what it is you're doing. And again, here's our little drop box. This is a 4-week section. So you'll notice that it's not, that the finals aren't due until the end of the month. So this is one of our longer sections. Our 3-week section, I'm sorry. And then here's some more videos on vanishing points and so on. In this section 4, we don't have a visual project. We just have a paper. So it talks about color theory here, and then key terms for your quiz. And there is your color theory paper. And I go into detail about how to do that, right? So everything is in here. And then last but not least is our final section, and that is on typography. So if we turn those down, here we have the anatomy of a character. Again, examples of type projects. It's always really good to look at the examples before you get into the actual project. And so again, here we have our thumbnails, our 8x10, and then our finals. We'll be using our ink for that and our watercolor or color pencils. Again, here's our discussion. Here's hand lettering tutorials. And so all of this is done without a computer other than to gather references. Everything else is done by hand. And I do that on purpose because I feel that in order for you to really understand how Elements and Principles work, that these are projects that are not going to necessarily be final art pieces, but they are definitely going to be good for you to be able to retain what elements and principles are. And each one of these projects and papers kind of goes through a specific part of what the elements and principles are. So that's it for the overview. Again, if you have questions, don't be afraid to come and talk to me, message me, or and we can do one-on-one Zoom session if necessary. So I hope that's helpful. And until next time.